Good.
Morning, everyone. I would like to open this Township North Huron meeting for Friday the 9th. Do I have a mover?
You don't need a mover to call it to order.
Sorry. So we're open. Session and reporting out, call to order.
You're a bit ahead of that, Bernie. I'm not sure. You might be looking at the closed session agenda, but your next item is confirmation of the agenda.
I don't have that one up.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby accept the agenda for the April 9th, 2021 closed session meeting as presented. Trevor, seconder, please. Go ahead, Trevor. Go ahead, Trevor.
I'd like to amend the agenda to include a motion or a discussion about mass vaccination clinics in North Huron.
Do I have, so for that, we're going to add that. Do I need a mover for that, Carson?
So basically, Deputy Reeve Sype is looking to amend the confirmation of the agenda motion. So based on Deputy Reeve Sype's request, basically your motion would read that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accept the agenda for the April 9th, 2021 special council meeting as amended to include a mass vaccination clinics in North Huron discussion as agenda item 5.1.
Thank you.
So you have Deputy Reeve Sype as your mover already.
Chris Palmer is a seconder. Cheers, Trevor. Sorry, Carson.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So just to clarify, the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accept the agenda for the April 9th, 2021 special council meeting as amended to include a mass vaccination clinics in North Huron discussion as agenda item 5.1. So Deputy Reeve Sype?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interests. Not seeing any. Minutes of the previous meeting that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopt.
That's the wrong agenda still, Bernie. So your next agenda item is delegations. You have none. So then reports. So that agenda has been amended to include mass vaccination clinics in North Huron is where you are at now.
Okay. Trevor, do you have that up?
That's the only thing on the agenda, Reeve. So once we're done this discussion, it'll move to close. So we can do that. So I'll talk to this mass vaccination clinic, Reeve.
Go ahead.
So as discussion, so yesterday, the Reeve, myself, and staff, as well as the CEMC, David Clark, had an emergency operations committee meeting as it relates to the provincial order that was issued by the Premier and the state of emergency. What was discussed is a lot of, for the most part, most of the time was the discussion about the vaccination clinics that are being held currently today. There's two clinics being held, one in Goderich, one in Stratford, and here in Perth, Health Unit has established that that's where they would like to have the concrete clinics, basically in the county. So what has been communicated to David Clark is there is going to be a list of requirements that if municipalities want to provide a pop-up clinic when they become available, then there'll be a list of requirements that they're looking for. What here in Public Health is looking at is they want to be able to come into a pop-up clinic and put shots in arms. They're not wanting to set up, take down, transport any of the any of the requirement that they need in order to have that clinic. The only thing they would be responsible for, as the way I understand it, would be the vaccinations themselves. And then they would just put shots in arms, and then the municipality would be responsible for tear down and clean up after that, and volunteers and that stuff. So what's happening is that list of requirements is going to come out to municipal staff. The Reeve and myself yesterday provided our support, and I think I was emotional as fire-hydrated as I could be yesterday in saying that we should have vaccination clinics 7 days a week, 24 hours a day in Huron County in order to stop this discussion about lockdowns every 4 to 6 weeks about in the province of Ontario. So there was lots of discussion about that as it relates to supply as well. But as communicated, that is really where the support lies with myself and the Reeve, is when or if it ever becomes available that Huron Public Health is looking to have a pop-up clinic, or even us requesting to have a pop-up clinic, they would have our support from the Reeve and the Deputy Reeve, at least at that point. And that's why Clerk Carson Lamb mentioned yesterday that South Huron had sent a message or a motion of council to Huron Public Health, and what has respired of that is that's one of the reasons why for the amendment today is to add that motion, to get a motion from council providing our support in order to do that, and sending that off to Huron Public Health so that we can get staff and Huron Public Health on the same page as to that we want a clinic in North Huron when and if they become available. Is there any questions from council from that respect? I know I communicated individually yesterday with all of council just to make sure that they were aware of that conversation that me and the Reeve had yesterday, just so there was no caught off guards. But I wanted to make sure that if I added anything today that was different than what I had mentioned in the previous part, and if you have any questions furthering my call yesterday, now would be a good time to ask them. So I'm not seeing any questions.
Not very often I mute myself. I had myself muted. I apologize. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, Deputy Syke, from talking with David, were there other municipalities in the county that are thinking the same as us? And I'm thinking, competition for the number of doses that will be available.
So to answer Councillor Palmer's question, a lot of that discussion about math is Huron County, based on the population, is only going to get 4,500 doses a month, is the way I understood it from David. That is the math at this particular point. The province of Ontario, based on theirs, they get the most at about 1 million doses from the federal government, but we are in Huron County are getting only 4,500 doses. So again, it's at this particular point, they're not suggesting that supply is a concern about having all these clinics and not being able to have them. The one thing that they will say is that's one of the reasons why we're saying is if it becomes available, we would have the ability to do that based on volunteerism or whatever. So to answer your question, is there any competition for all the municipalities in Huron County are willing to help? I know Dwayne was going to touch base with Morris Turnberry yesterday and Howick to see if they would help support our discussion. Central here or South Huron is obviously wanting one. I don't think it's definitely not a competition. It's how do we get them in our area? How do we get shots in arms faster? That's really the idea of this discussion.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
And through you, Your Worship, just to add to Deputy Reeve-Sykes' comment, my understanding is that the clinics would be rotating, so that Wingham would be one day, for 1 week, let's say. There was a comment yesterday about Huron East. So, you know, it may be in this week's clinic may be in Seaforth, next week's clinic may be in Wingham. That idea that recognizing the limited supply of the vaccine, but for the vaccine to be available, you know, throughout the county. That's my understanding of the conversation yesterday too. So it's not it's not intended to be competition, I guess is my comment there.
And if one of you gentlemen could just help my memory and pick up on the fact that I believe the conversation started with Huron County's decided just to have the vaccines in Goderich or something. Could somebody just refresh my memory and the rest of council? I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Trevor?
The conversation was that Huron Public Health and Huron County wanted that is where the concrete clinics are going to be held, is in Goderich and Stratford. So they're always going to be there. They're not moving those clinics around. Like, there'll always be that clinic in Goderich and Stratford. The idea is to get more of these clinics out, and that's the discussion as the CAO mentioned, and the discussion yesterday was these rotating clinics will just be an addition to those 2 clinics that are already in existence.
Yes, because it's our understanding that there are no rotating clinics at this point in time. Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. In the discussion, are you also talking about the influx of tourists we are expecting over the summer and that they're coming from hotspots here while we are only getting 4,500 doses a month?
I think I can answer that one, Anita. I don't think that was taken into account, no. And that is completely out of our hands. But it is a good point to make, a very good point to make. Yeah, we're going to double the size of our population in the summertime, but we're still getting the smaller amount of dosages. Anyone else?
I think, Reeve, I'll just add to that. There was lots of discussion about, you know, how you register for a vaccine, and there's no, like, I know personally that there's people in Huron County that have went and got their vaccine in another municipality or another county. So, you know, there's nothing that stops anybody from getting a vaccine wherever they register, from what I understand. But, you know, ultimately, you know, as Councillor Van Henderson has mentioned, like tourism, well, in the idea right now, we should not see any tourism at least till April 8th or May 8th, I guess. And, you know, if anybody was to believe that this order is going to go only 28 days, you know, I would think this order is probably going to go into the end of May is my guess. But, you know, that's nobody's willing to put that on paper, but that would be my guess based on past history.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any. Do we have a motion on the floor? I believe so.
Oh, so there isn't actually a motion. Carson's got a motion that he's willing to, that he's got a recommended motion to offer for council.
Okay.
Yeah, so the draft motion would be that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the use of municipal facilities for COVID-19 vaccination clinics, and further that council directs staff to coordinate with the Huron-Perth Public Health Unit to provide and support mass vaccination clinics in the Township of North Huron, and further that council authorizes staff to coordinate with the municipality of Morris Turnberry and the Township of Howick regarding the coordination of mass vaccination clinics.
Thank you. Do I have a mover?
I will move it.
Trevor's moving. Paul's
I will
second.
second.
Sorry, Kevin. Paul beat you to it.
Okay.
Wait. Any further questions or comments or concerns? Not seeing any.
I just want to
Carson?
thank Deputy Deputy Reeve. I can only imagine the amount of effort and time that he's had to spend into and yourself, Reeve, and the staff. When these things come up quickly, you have to bounce on them, and it takes a great deal of leadership. I want to thank you for your leadership.
Yes, and Deputy Reeve Sipes did lead the charge on this one, and he did a great job. Okay. Carson, I don't see any other hands.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Henderson,
Yes.
Counselor Palmer,
Yes.
Counselor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yep.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you. Now, I believe we are at the minutes of the previous meeting now.
So now we are at closed session and reporting out. So if you don't mind, your worship, the motion on the floor would be that the council of the township of North Huron hereby proceeds at 10:18 a.m. to an in-camera session closed to the public to discuss the following: advice that is subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, cross-border servicing agreement negotiations.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. I have Rick McBurney seconding.
So Counselor Heffer? Counselor Heffer, you're muted there. Counselor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Counselor Palmer?
Yes.
Counselor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight? Counselor Falconer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0. So we will end this open session meeting and we'll flip over to the closed session meeting now.